Humanity, through its irresponsible behavior, has exhausted the natural resources of Earth,
Big dummies.
making it almost uninhabitable.
Free the Earth.
In a burst of lucidity, pressed by the irreversible degradation of the planet,
Save the ice caps.
the great nations are forced to put aside their differences and share their knowledge in order to create the most vast spacecraft ever constructed.
Coal is clean power.
Thus, the Tonight on the Board Boys Black Angel project is launched.
Tonight on the Board Boys. I think Campbell just said it.
I did.
Black Angel.
Black Angel.
Beep boop beep doop.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Board Boys Podcast, Season 4, Episode 9. We're playing Black Angel tonight.
Hot.
Now, that's a big deal for us. You want to talk about why that's a big deal for us, Ben?
Yeah, because in 11 more episodes, it'll be 420.
It's sizzling.
Why else is that important, Ben?
Well, actually, Josh, this game has the so far rare distinction of being the newest, hottest, freshest, warmest,
Trillist. On fleekest.
game we've ever played.
Yeah.
Here live on the podcast.
Well, is it?
I think it is. Name another.
Well, by the-
Wingspan.
We did play Wingspan.
Wingspan's number 40.
What?
Wingspan's
Yeah, but
currently number
we
40
played it
on
like
the
right
BGG
before it came
top
out.
I know,
It
but
was
we
super
played it-
hot.
But it was also a bonus episode.
Yeah, no, I was going to say non-bonus episode. This is it for sure.
If you're listening, if this is the first episode you've ever listened to the Board Boys podcast, you're in for a treat because historically, the games that we play are very close to or on the BGG Top 100 list.
You know, the other thing that we could say about this one versus Wingspan is we received Wingspan for free from Jamie to do it, but this one we actually received for full price 3 times.
We did. All 3 of us bought this game at Gen Con. So we're going to play Black Angel tonight, as we just kind of hinted, and if you listen to our Gen Con recap episode, Black Angel was a game that had our full attention at the con. It sold out day 1. They had an emergency pallet delivery airdropped in with more games, and then they were selling them days 2 and 3 of the con, but it was limit 1 per customer, and they had them behind the register to make sure that people weren't taking multiple copies. It was that popular.
The loss of life was immense.
Yeah, so we're really excited to check it out tonight, but before we do, as we always do, I want to take it around the table and find out what folks have been playing. Now, this section may be a little short this week because if you didn't already catch it, we did just post a Gen Con recap episode where we ran through all of the games that we played and had the opportunity to check out at Gen Con. Go listen to that if you haven't. But Rob, what's some new stuff you've been playing?
Well, Josh, I'm trying to think if I talked about point salad on the last episode or not. Did we play that at Gen Con?
Rob has pivoted to
We did.
antique games only.
Dang. Okay.
We
then.
played it like right before
cribbage.
we covered the last
Okay.
night.
Well, I would like to say that I played a bunch of point salad, and
Backgammon.
it is still super fun.
There is a little bit of debate in that game on whether or not 0 counts as an even number.
That is a true statement.
This is Point Salad, known primarily for being pointed out by me in episode 8 for games to watch for at Gen Con. Boom!
Ben and I just high-fived. What else you play?
I played Terror Below a couple more times.
Did you do the reverse side with the sweet jumps?
Oh yeah, I think I'm playing with that side every time. Although I think it's better with like a higher player count. I played once with a buddy at work, and then I played once last night with Campbell. It is totally not a Campbell game, but I think he had fun.
Yeah,
I totally snaked the win out at the end.
That's why it's not a Campbell game.
Gabe snaked the win from me for you.
Oh, when he murdered you?
Because he murdered me.
With the military strike?
No, he just like brought a worm over to Campbell that he couldn't handle.
Yeah.
And
Mama, I'm so hard to handle now. Black Angels.
yeah, so
Put that at the beginning of the episode.
there's a character in that game that I think is really overpowered. It was like the SWAT leader or something, or
Yeah, if I
special
played her
agent.
from the beginning, I probably really smoked that game.
Yeah, I'm thinking about house ruling her. She like adds 2 damage to a weapon every time, and I think like once per turn is probably an appropriate thing because it's insane.
Probably.
If only you could ask Mike Elliott, the designer of Terror
It's true. I mean, I've got some clarifications online. Like all the Gen Con games that I've talked about on BGG so far, there's like been a lot of like back and forth talk, like designers out there. That's the thing I love about our hobby is like you can talk directly to the people, like, and the publishers are there answering questions right away, especially right after like a big con.
She talks to angels.
They're really on top of it. Played Horrified. Did not get to pick that up at Gen Con. Tried to go to like 3 different Targets. Couldn't find it. Ended up ordering it from Target.com. It came in like one day.
This episode brought to you by Target.com.
Yes.
The Board Boys are now officially sponsored by Target.com for all of your home good needs.
Anyway, like their inventory sucks because it said they had them in there, but they're in pallets in the back, and the employees did not want to go back there and find them, which is fine. I just ordered it online. My son and I played versus the starter guys, which is Dracula and the creature from the
Black Lagoon.
Yeah, the Black Lagoon. And I messed up something at the startup of that game, and we kind of got smoked. But essentially what this game is, it's a full cooperative game where you could fight between like 2 and 4 universal horror monsters, and you're running around trying to save the townspeople, get in where they want to go. You're picking up items. Every monster has its own way you can kill them. First of all, you have to set it up for the kill, and then you have to go in and actually defeat them. So like the creature from the Black Lagoon, you have to go find its layer, and to do that you play like these the item color. There's 3 item colors: red, yellow, and blue, and there's kind of like a little map. And if you play red, you move the boat to the next red space, and if you play blue, the next blue space, etc. And once you get to the layer, then you can fight him. Dracula, you're running around and you have to smash 4 coffins so he has nowhere to go. Then you chase him down, and then you have to kill him with the items. Super fun game. I think with the different combinations of monsters, it'll be really interesting to check out. And since it's co-op, I can play with Bo pretty easily. 2 more quick ones for me. One, we played QE, which I wish I could remember what the full name of that is, Campbell.
Quantitative easement, right?
Quantitative, I don't think easement's right, but essentially what you're doing in that game is you're playing governments trying to bail out businesses that are too big to fail.
Quantitative easing.
Easing, like in 2008. And this is a game where everyone takes turns being auctioneer. You'll flip over a business, and it'll have a point value on it, industry type, and a country. And the auctioneer will write a number on their...
Auctioneer card?
It's an auctioneer card, but it's like a dry erase board. So you're bidding, you get to write down any number you want on this dry erase board. You can write down 1, you could write down 11 billion, whatever you want. And you put it out there, and then everyone else secretly bids against that. And the auctioneer will look at all the secret bids, and then they'll hand out the business to whoever won the bid. And they write that on the back of the card. So the only information you get is not the auctioneer, is what the auctioneer bid, what the starting bid was, and who won the auction. So if the auctioneer won it, you know what he has to write down on it because you saw it. But if somebody else wins it, it's a secret you don't know. So you're kind of trying to game the system every time you're the auctioneer, trying to figure out like what people are bidding, because ultimately if you bid the most money in the game, you can't win.
Yeah, and also it's quantitative. I'm sorry that I said quantitative.
Oh, gotcha. And then at the end, it's kind of like a set collection thing with the businesses, and you score points depending on what you get. And if you get some bonus points if you spent the least amount of money, and then you add up your points at the end and win, and see who has the most points. I really, really enjoyed it. I think might be like my go-to like bidding game right now.
It was very fun.
It kind of made me feel like Ponzi scheme a little bit.
It was fun at 3. I think it would be really fun at like 5.
Yeah, 100%. I think that it'd be better at 4 or 5 players. We played with 3 just because I wanted to check it out.
It just seemed like kind of like there were a couple times where I just didn't want the thing at all, and then it was just a bid between 2 people, and yeah, but still very fun. I played the United States and crushed all of my foreign oppressors. So
I was China, and my friend Gabe was Japan.
What?
Japan?
Nippon, the land of the rising sun.
Yeah. I see. Campbell, you play
Sunrise
anything?
Kingdom. Yeah, I played a few things this week. I got the Networks Cracked, which was pretty fun. It's a game where you have a TV station and you have to program stuff to make money and get viewers. At the end of the game, whoever has the most viewers wins. It was a pretty straightforward, like, teach somebody how to play in 5 minutes kind of set collection game. You basically take your actions to go around the table and purchase shows, and then add some stars for the shows, then action cards, basically. And that's pretty much it. Then you, like, line them up and whoever can combo wombo the best and take their actions the most efficiently win. Not a ton to it, but the shows and like stars and ads and stuff you can get are really fun. So the art was really kooky and cool. And I hear there's a expansion for the game where you add like player powers. So maybe that would be worth a snag. I could see getting into it when I have people over who want to play a board game, but I like definitely wouldn't want to learn Black Angel.
Sure.
Also played Underwater Cities again this week. That game is so fun, and I haven't played it in probably 6 months, and I don't know why. It's great. It's really, really cool. Continues to be like right up there in my raddest recent games list.
Well,
have you played Underwater Cities?
Yeah, we played it at GameCon.
Oh, yeah, we did. And you didn't like it?
No.
Well, you're objectively wrong. Maybe subjectively wrong.
Dubjectively?
Subjectively. What else? Played Era a few times this week. I think we talked about it a little bit. But that's Pandemic guys roll and place 3D buildings onto a battleship-style grid dice building game.
It's like the successor to Roll Through the Ages.
Yeah, which is different than Through the Ages, A New Story of Civilization.
Correct.
Yeah. I like it. I haven't necessarily received glowing sentiments about the game from other people I played it with, but...
Oh, I really liked it too.
Yeah, I know you liked it. I liked it. I do not believe... I think it was like just about everybody I played with was like decent to no thanks.
Really?
Yeah.
I think you need to wash those boards.
Yeah, I think I do too.
That paint style.
I don't think it was like the fact. Like I think everybody enjoyed like building their little cities. I don't know. I found something I find really fun about the gameplay. Because to me, it's basically just like takes as long as Yahtzee, is more strategic than Yahtzee, but is basically a gamery version of Yahtzee. But maybe other people don't see it that way. They want something more strategic or less strategic for a dice rolling game. I don't know. So that's, I think, my highlights. I played a few others this week. But
what did we just play together?
Monopoly.
What did we just play together?
Junior.
Like literally 5 minutes ago.
Yeah,
Spin the bottle.
Yeah, you guys kissing
Oops.
and stuff.
It was not that.
no,
it was not
what
7
was it? What's
minutes
it called?
in heaven
Unmatched?
either. Yeah, we played Unmatched Battle of Legends.
Who fought?
I was King Arthur
Who
with
farted?
my sidekick Merlin.
And I was Sinbad with my sidekick, Carrot Top.
And I'm Ben.
Oh, hey. My name's Board Boy Josh, by the way, or you can just call me Josh. We never introduced. I just realizing we never.
Yeah, I
introduced
wanted to do a whole
ourselves.
Black Crows thing, but I had to sneak it in the other way, so we're past that now.
Okay, well, cool.
Let's talk
Moving
about
on.
Unmatched real quick.
Sure, go ahead.
Unmatched is a one-on-one fighting game where you move your little hero dude and their sidekicks around a board and try to whoop the crap out of the other person's hero. And it's a pretty straightforward card play game where it seems like most of the decks have like, out of a 30 card deck, like 20 of the cards are the same or ish, like maybe 15 of the cards are the same in every deck. But then each hero and their sidekick have like cool different powers that Rob said that everybody feels OP. I did.
Yeah, I think Sinbad is way OP.
Here's the thing. I got the drop on Rob like
Hold on.
instantly.
Isn't Unmatched the game where everyone that's played it has said the person that they're playing against character is OP?
Yeah, and I think the one thing here was like I got the drop on Rob in a big way today, and he was never able to recover. I think his cards had some really cool abilities on them, but because I had the momentum in the fight,
Yeah, he had me running scared.
like Sinbad's playstyle seemed to be one of like building momentum, and I got the momentum like early and just kept pushing it. But I think if they had gone a different way and we'd played these guys before, it would have been like I would have felt like King Arthur was OP also.
Yeah, this is a game where I'm super psyched to just see all the different characters and IPs they come out with, because they've announced Jurassic Park, Bruce Lee, they got Robin Hood and Bigfoot. I mean, they're doing it with...
I think they were doing one with Al Franken and Stuart Smalley.
They're doing it with Mondo, and so like whatever Mondo has license to,
Which is like everything.
yeah. So it'll be interesting because like this one and the Funkoverse game, I think are like competing kind of in the same space as kind of like mini Hero, not Hero Clicks, not Hero Quest, Heroescape.
I think
Kind of like a mini Heroescape thing. Because if you're a Heroescape, you used to be able to like play as a whole. Like you could mix match all the characters in that and battle on terrain and have like giant
doing
battles.
one where you can be John Mayer and his sidekick is Jason Mraz.
Campbell, you're falling flat today, my friend.
Oh man, I just think that'd be so funny to be those dudes in a fighting game.
Yeah, your ability could be gravity.
I think the
Because
most
it's
OP
working against me.
character in a game is the money bag in Monopoly.
Oh man, you could be like the Monopoly guy and the car or the top hat. All right, real talk.
20th anniversary.
Your favorite Monopoly piece, original style.
I like the dog.
I was always the top hat.
Money bag.
The money bag was a piece.
Money bag, money bag, money
I
bag.
feel like you're making that up.
I
No,
like
it
the
was.
dog.
So
I like
when
the terrier.
The terrier.
When I was young, like really young, I wanted to be the car. When I was a little older, like late teens, early 20s, I wanted to be the dog. As an older guy, I'm pretty much always the shoe.
You the dog.
Ben, you play anything recently?
Well, I saw a game in the store that I thought about buying. It was Monopoly Cheaters Edition, which didn't make any sense. I cheat anyway. I did pick up, though, my very own copy of Azul.
Oh.
And played that probably 10 times last weekend. So
It's hard not to. That game's
Did you
fast
play?
and fun.
Did you play the preset side, or did you flip it and play the other side?
So we got started on the preset side and then flipped to the other side, and really I had more fun with the freewheeling side.
Yeah,
way
I'm an
more
other side kind of
way
guy
more
too.
points. The first time we did it, I messed up because I didn't get my diagonals all going the same direction, so I couldn't get 5 of a kind because my one last space needed to be 2 different
Can you
times.
tell me what the other side? I don't think
It's
I've
just
ever
blank. It's
played
just
the other
blank.
side.
So
You
you
set your
still
own
can't.
pattern.
It's still like
Same
Sudoku where
rules.
you can't have the same symbol. You can only have the symbol once in a row in a column, but it's not preset. You can put it wherever you want. So
It lets you put down way higher scores, but you have to be a lot more careful.
yeah, exactly. So you can sit there and combo wombo the whole time.
Because you can just start up in a corner and work your way down, but then like later on you might screw yourself.
Yeah,
based
it's
on
way-
that.
it's
you
way
just
easier
have
to
to
catch
like
yourself.
always put the same things in the same order.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Speaking of Azul, if you like Azul, but games that are slightly better than Azul,
Wow.
we've got a very exciting contest that we're going to be talking about.
It's
in the
called
second
Black
half
Angel.
of the episode.
Yay.
I've only played 2 games since we did our Gen Con recap, and one we did on the after the drive back. A game called Draftosaurus, which was a
The game was really fun.
game that I picked up. It's super simple. It plays
Did you
over.
play that also, Rob?
Yeah, Bo won. And, like
Yeah.
we all played.
Oh, you
and we
guys
all
played
knew
when
the
you got, like,
rules,
back
and
from Gen Con.
Bo smoked us.
Yeah, like he had a little
it was-
bit
it
of
was-
help from us.
yeah.
But for the most part, like he had it kind of down. He's
And-
like, where's that part at? Oh,
Yeah.
here.
The spread was 38, 37, 36, 34.
Whoa.
But essentially in the game, you draw 6 dinosaurs. There's different types of dinosaurs, but you draw 6 dinosaur cubes from a bag, and then the starting player will roll a die, and depending on how they roll the die, there's different ways that you have to play your dinosaurs into this theme park that you're building, and there's 6 unique zones and then a river.
but Josh, they're not just cubes.
They are not just cubes. They actually look like there's a little T-Rex and a little Triceratops. Like they're awesome. They're so cool. Check out our Instagram.
That's not a cube.
Check out our Instagram, the Board Boys Podcast. We put some photos up there. It's great. But essentially the way that it works is somebody will roll a die and it will tell you where and or how you have to play one of your dinosaurs. Everyone reveals the dinosaur that they're placing, and then they put it down under their board. Once that's done, you take all the dinosaurs that are left in your hand and you pass them to the left. And then a new player rolls the die and you do the same thing. Obviously it gets more complicated the more rounds, because you've got less spaces to put. You've got less free spaces to put your dinosaurs around, but you play over the course of 2 rounds and then you score it, and whoever has the highest points wins. But there are spaces where it's like only dinosaurs of one kind, only dinosaurs that are different, exactly 3 dinosaurs in one. One is you only put 1 dinosaur there, and if he's the only one of that dinosaur in your park, you'll score extra points at the end. So a lot of fun. Played in like 15 to 20 minutes. Bo, who's 6 now.
He is 5.
who's 5. He picked it up, and like I said, he beat us. And so if you got kids and you're looking for fun games to play with them, definitely check that out. And then I also played a game on Wednesday called Space Core. I think it's like Space Core 2030 to 2155 or something like that.
And Bo
Sorry.
also won that game.
Yeah.
So it's not Space Corps. It's like a fighting game. It's not like a economy game.
No, it's a 3X game. There's no fighting at all.
So it's Space Corps, and you're like corporations.
No. Well, yeah.
Is it a zombie game called Space Corps?
It's Space Corps, whatever.
Is it
But
a racing game called Space Course?
it's actually you're moving dead guys through the galaxy. It's called Space Corps.
Is it a space
I would play
reenactment
that
of the
game.
Bible called
Yeah.
Space Cross?
Anyway, it's a 3X game without any combat where you are trying to build. You're trying to
Is
build.
it a gambling game called Space Craps?
You're trying to build settlements on different planets, and it's our solar system. So you're going to Mercury, Venus, Earth, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus. Pluto is a planet in the game, so I was pleased to see that.
Wow.
Because we all know the controversy that's happened there recently. But the thing that's really interesting about the game is the game plays with 3 truly unique boards. So you'll play the first round or the first era on the first board. Once that's done, you clear everything off. You put that board back into the box. There's a second board that comes up. And everybody kind of resets. There is a bonus that you can get at the end of every era that will help the first and second player off to a little bit of an advantage at the start of a new era. But once the whole second era is played and there's new mechanisms that are introduced, the farther you get from Earth, there's radiation and things that you have to factor in as you're building and exploring and upgrading your genetics and all of that. And then once the second era is done, you clear everything off, you flip that board over, and then you are out in amongst the stars. And that's when the final round happens, where you're just going to these different star systems and you're trying to build colonies out on the edge of space, which is where you score your end game points. The only gripe that I have about the game is the third phase gets a little mathy, because in the first round, when you need to move from like one planet to another, it costs you like 6 or 7 movement. In the second round, when you need to move, it's costing you between like 15 to 30 movement, depending on how far you're going. When you get to the final stage, it's like 30 minimum, but it can cost you all the way up to like 150 movement in order to move from solar system to solar system. And so the way that it works is you have movement multiplication cards in the last round. So you've got a little tableau that you have out in front of you that's like a movement of 9, but then you'll play a card from you can play as many cards from your hand as you want as you're taking abilities. But it's like, I've got a movement of 9, times it by 3, times it by 4, times that by 3. Okay, how many movement does that give me? And so there's just like, at points there was literally like, we need a calculator to figure out how much movement somebody has, because I have 17 movement base. Multiply that by 4. Okay, now multiply that by 3. Okay, like what does that get me? And that kind of threw me off a little bit because it did slow the game down quite a bit. But I enjoyed it enough to play it again. I do miss the combat. I mean, I'm a 4X kind of guy. I like the extermination part of it, and that wasn't there. But it was still. It came down to the wire. John from my game group and I, we tied, and it went to the tiebreaker, which was highest colony value, and he beat me by a couple points there. But it was a lot of fun. Tonight we're also playing a game in space called Black Angel. Rob, why don't you talk about it?
Before I talk about it, I just wanted to talk about one more thing. We talked about Abomination, the Heir of Frankenstein on the last Gen Con bonus episode. I've talked to the designer and a lot of people in the forums the last week or so, and I've got to play the game one more time. And I just wanted to just a short mini review, because I've had lots of people ask me like, hey, this game sounds awesome, but I've heard it's really long, and what do you think about the game? The theme seems great, mechanisms seem good. My thought is, we played it again. I knew how to play the game. We burned through it as fast as I could with teaching, and it was 2 hours and 15 minutes.
He's not exaggerating. That's for real.
We were going really fast, like almost too fast. Like I thought we were going too fast. So if you don't want that long of a game, it might not be for you. It might be, if you want to play at a leisurely pace, you're probably looking more like at 2.5 hours, 2 hours 45 minutes for a 4-player game. I also think that there's not enough resource cubes, and they talked about having something like to do multiplier tokens for the cubes. I thought it was really funny that the rule book said like in the off chance that you run out of cubes or something, like it doesn't happen often, and like it happens every game. But the designer is coming up with like I'll be interested to see what it looks like, but he's trying to come up with a way to make the game shorter already, because that seems to be like the major criticism. Because I do agree that for what it is, like by the time I'm done playing the game, I'm kind of done playing the game. It's a super fun game, but it's a little long for what it is. And I'll be curious to see like what kind of variant he throws out there to shorten the length of it. There's lots of things that have been thrown out. But between reading the cards and like resetting the board and bumping players, it can just add up. Anyway, Abomination, I still give it 2 thumbs way up. Just give it a try before you buy, probably.
I'm really looking forward to trying it. Rob played Abomination twice while I played Black Angel twice over this last week, and we haven't crossed paths on either of those yet.
Nope. Sorry for the quick sidebar, but now I will talk about Black Angel, since I'm the only one that's read this darn rule book, even though I haven't played the game yet. I played an eighth of a game with Campbell last night.
We played for like a half hour
to kind of figure out what's going on. In Black Angel...
Wait, this game is going to take 4 hours?
No.
No.
My fraction was probably incorrect. Anyway... in Black Angel, we're like the last of humanity flying to a new planet, except for, I'm not sure if like we're in like cold storage or it's just like our genetic code is here. Anyway, we're all playing AIs controlling robots on this ship. None of the countries like trusted each other. So we're all vying to be like the AI that does the best job. So when we land on the planet, like we get to control what happens. And along the way, like we make friends with these 3 different alien races, which represent the 3 kinds of dice in the game: the green, the blue, and the yellow.
Yeah.
Like the theme of the game, like there's the beginning kind of tells a story and talks about the different races. There's a 4th race called the Ravagers. I don't know what the 3 nice races are called off the top of my head, but the Ravagers are like the bad guys. They come and try to like eat the Black Angel up and spit it out. This game is similar to Trois in the fact that you're dice drafting, but that's about it. There's some analogs between the two as far as the actions go, but they're really different games. It is the same designers.
It is. Yeah, it's
There's another
Pearl
game
Studios.
that shares a similarity from the same designer too, right?
Yeah. Do you want to hit those facts before I kind of
I was
go
about
into
to.
gameplay?
So this is going to be interesting. Okay, so Black Angel currently has a score of 7.7, which, as we know, if that were like the score 3 years ago or 2 years ago or even 6 months ago, it'd be on the top 100 right now, potentially.
Ish.
Where does a score of 7.7 put Black Angel on the BGG list O games?
Is it not TBD still?
No, it's got a ranking.
I mean, it could be anywhere.
Yeah, like 5,000.
It depends on how many people have rated it.
It currently has 92 ratings and 86 comments with the score of 7.7. I'll tell you everything else first as you're making a decision. 1 to 4 players. It plays best with 3, 60 minutes to 120 minutes, ages of 12 plus, weight 3.7 out of 5.
I think it's around like 4,000 right
Campbell?
now.
Yeah, we're gonna play QE here really quick. I think it's 5,099.
It's over 9,000.
It's over 9,000. It's 5,650 currently.
Yes, I was so close.
So, yeah. With that, unless there's anything that anyone would like to add, we're going to go ahead and dive right in and come back and talk about it.
Is this where we officially jump the shark?
Well, do you want me to talk about the gameplay?
Oh, yeah. Did you not do that?
No.
I guess I did interrupt like halfway.
Yeah.
We're no longer doing top 100.
Please do. Please do.
Okay, so in Black Angel, like I said, we are explorers trying to get to this planet called Spes? S-P-E-S.
Oh, it's Space Cross.
Cool. Like motocross?
Yeah.
Anyway, there's 2 boards. One is the Black Angel like cockpit, and the other one is us flying through space, and it's got the Black Angel on it. There are 3 different colors of dice, like I said, representing the 3 different colors of the aliens you encounter, and also there's 3 different kinds of technology tiles that each have to do with the aliens you encounter. There's also advanced technology, which I think should be called endgame
Yeah,
technology.
endgame. Yeah,
It's
it
confusing.
really
Anyway,
should.
they're black tiles that are just for endgame scoring. On your turn, you can do one of two things. You can do sequence A or sequence B for your turn. If you do sequence A, there's two different kinds of actions you can do. One are actions on the Black Angel. Two are actions on mission cards out on planets that have been previously placed by players. If we talk about the Black Angel first, if you do a yellow dice, you can discover technology that you put on your board, and there's kind of like a little micro push 'em around game you're playing. You can do the blue action or gray action. Is that blue? I'm colorblind, I guess.
Yeah, I think they call it gray, but it looks blue to me.
Yeah. You can that lets you repair the Black Angel after like the Ravagers attack, and then the green action. These are the dudes that are like their planet got destroyed by the Ravagers, so they're flying around on spaceships. And when you take their action, you get to fight the Ravagers that are attacking your ship. And then each of the colors has an option to do command your ships, which is essentially you use the dice to fly out on the board, and if you land on a planet, like if you land on a yellow planet, you can play a yellow card on it, and then that becomes a card that you can use later in the game. That's kind of like, I'm trying to remember the analog in TWA for that.
Yeah, like I don't know, like action cards or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So once you have somebody on that mission card on the planet, you can then use the dice, a 1, 2, or 3 dice to do that action 1, 2, or 3 times.
Yeah, they're similar to the action cards. They're not similar, even though they're called missions, to like the plague cards or whatever. When I originally was hearing about the game, I thought these cards would be like everybody comes plays on them and then you score points for like completing them. It's actually closer to like the mission cards you'll set on and then use them as point engines.
Sure. So that's basically the stuff you can do in sequence A, and sequence B is that you basically just re-roll all the dice you've got, and you reset your player board, and you advance the Black Angel, which will get you towards the end of the game. So the way the game can end, 1, the Black Angel gets to the planet, or 2, we go through the whole Ravager deck, and once one of those two things happens, we finish the round, play one more round, and then add up the points. There is an additional, you can score like points for your stuff if you don't end the game with the Ravager deck. If you get to the planet, all your stuff you accumulate in the game is actually worth points. If the Ravagers eat you up, then those are not worth points.
Because you're dead in space.
You dead. You didn't make it to the planet, baby.
But somebody still wins the game, which is weird.
Correct. Man, if this was a semi-co-op, that would be rough. Like, oh, I'm not going to win. I'm just going to let the Ravagers eat us and the game's over.
Yeah.
Real talk. Hashtag real talk. Should we blast off and get going?
Pew, 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 pew. Or I guess if I'm an AI. Beep, boop,
This
beep.
is a trip of several thousand years according to the rule book.
Galactic proportions. Cool.
Word.
Well, we'll be back.
Hey, we should get going on a spaceship. And we're back. It's the board game, guys.
The board game boys coming in hot.
We just flew in from outer space in Black Angel.
On our ship.
Currently 5,690 on the BGG hot list.
Beep, boop, beep, boop.
And
Does
rising.
Does it live up to the hype? Rob,
I don't know.
What do you think?
I'm just an
I think
AI.
if it's more in the 6,000s.
You think it's more in the 6,000 games? I think it's more in the 6,900.
Does not compute.
Nice.
I don't know. The game will either fall in the ratings or get higher in the ratings. That's what I think.
I'm going to keep an eye on this game.
Time will tell.
I'll report back over the next couple months, but I think that this game is going to shake out right around the 135 mark.
You don't think it'll crack 100?
No,
Okay.
not right away. Maybe, but
Okay.
I would see it being like right outside of the top 100. That's my guess. Anyway, Rob, what did you think about the game?
I'll roll back to that in my final thoughts about where I think it's going to fall.
Okay.
This game, it is the exact same thing I thought about TWA when I first played it online. There's a lot of levers to pull and a lot of interconnectedness, and I had no idea how I was going to score points really when I started the game.
Now that being said, you did score the most points
I ended
of
up
anyone in the game.
I did, and out of the 3 plays Campbell has played, and this is my first time playing, I have the highest score of all 3 games.
That's true.
so I'm not 100% sure what I did to do that, but what helps me with this game
Pulled a
is
Campbell and complained about no points the whole time.
Yeah, it's a magic thing.
I feel like I said that a couple times at the beginning. That's for sure. But I think what helps with this game is the look, the theme. Those pull me through. Whereas with Troyes, I'm kind of like, I'm not really that excited about some like medieval French city, but a really cool spaceship in space, like dealing with alien technologies and trying to wheel and deal my way through with their tech. That is interesting to me. Also, just like the variable game ending. Like I don't remember in Troyes how the game ends.
Troyes ends over a certain. There's a set.
Yeah,
number
there's
of
a set
rounds.
number of rounds. Which Campbell, we can get into this in the pros and cons maybe, but I'm surprised you like this one as much because of the variable ending.
Oh, I would rather have it be a certain amount of rounds because like, I don't have it's not a con for me when a game ends though, like because we know how the game ends, but like if this game lasted a certain amount of rounds, I wouldn't have did myself as hard as I basically should be wearing a Rob Pearson jersey right now because I just gave you a big time assist in the end of this game. But no, it's fine. It's like you know how it ends, and so it's not like a huge.
Right. I mean, you can see the end coming.
But
for
I
sure.
I prefer a set number of rounds for sure in a game.
Ben, what about you?
Well, cool game.
Cool game.
Like it's just a cool game.
Welcome to the Cool Game Guys podcast.
Cool game.
Where we talk about only cool games.
Just the coolest. Like Rob said, cool art. The board, the space track moving and kind of flipping and changing is a cool thing. So
I don't think we mentioned it. It's Ian O'Toole art, and that guy is off the chain.
Yeah,
he does tons of games, lots of Vital. He does every Vital Lacerda game.
Yep.
So like Escape Plan, which I recently got, which looks awesome. He can just like throw out an art style. Like none of his games. I mean, they all have a very different look to them. I think
for sure.
I would say this is the best board game box I think I've ever seen.
Oh yeah. I don't think it's any surprise that
there's no floppy hats on
I mean,
it.
so many people wanted to buy this
I love
game
floppy hats, but
day one of Gen Con just because of what it looked like. Like the cover is so cool. It's this beautiful big ship kind of flying through space, and there's all this awesome stuff around it. That was originally what got me hooked. And it happens that the mechanisms are kind of not in the exact same. They're similar to Troyes. They're different, but they're similar enough, and I love that game. That this was a very enjoyable experience. I didn't put up the most points. This one was definitely a learning game for me. But man, it was a lot of fun.
I'm just looking on my phone. Can this be the last episode of season 4?
I think we technically do 13 full episodes a season.
I only say that because Troyes was the first one.
Oh,
it'd be
Black Angel
would be the last one.
and it'd be kind of funny to bookend it.
Yeah. I don't know. I have a feeling that when we go to the season break, Ben's going to dip out. So I feel like if we just continue, season 4 on in perpetuity, like if we just change the naming system entirely and we do like season 4, episode 50, like Ben will still be here.
I shouldn't have signed on for one season.
Yeah. The season goes on forever. Anyway, before I start having a coughing attack, let's take it around the table in
Put me on
reverse
blast
order here. Ben, I'm going to start with you. What are some of the things about this game, besides the artwork, which we're all huge fans of, but what are some things about this game that really did it for you?
I'm kind of growing to like the dice drafting. Is that the term for this mechanic? Kind of.
yeah.
This isn't as much.
It's not drafting,
This is
I guess.
dice selection.
Dice selection.
But they all kind of fall into the same thing, like using your dice as a worker or an action kind
More
of a
than
thing.
just like rolling the dice. And we talked about this.
Dice manipulation.
Yeah. I think I said this last episode, but that's a cool thing that I'm not used to, or I'm getting more used to. So I'm enjoying that in games. What was the game where we had the little guys that sat in mechs?
Oh, you're talking about
Anachrony?
It was the time travel one. So that kind of has your little robots fly around in spaceships that they can actually sit in. So
Oh yeah, just
think-
that aesthetic where like you can click your little robot into
Yeah.
a spaceship.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Also, like the Black Angel could have just been like a token on the board, but it's totally a cool little miniature that, I mean, it doesn't really do anything, but it shows you where the ship is at in space, and that could have totally just been like a cardboard token.
Doesn't do anything for you. Does a lot of stuff for me, Rob.
Wow.
A lot.
Oh, like I said a couple minutes ago, the space track moving as you reset and your ship moves through space. It just kind of it's cool to show, your track changing. It's not just you're not just going around a board or counting down rounds. And then as you've placed these missions, but all that stuff you're basically flying away from. So as you place missions, you kind of got to think about how long they're going to be on the board. So I had a nice combo of missions set up to where I could generate free ships and then sell the ships off for victory points. So I only got to do that 1.5 times and then had extra ships the rest of the time, which wasn't terrible, but I wasn't able to complete that trade-off.
It's really hard to capitalize on the point scoring action cards more than once.
Yeah.
Because they fall off the board, and it takes a lot of time to collect the resources needed to do that. So anybody who could do it a couple times, like, more power to them, because you're either going to get timed out or you're going to get like turned out.
Yep.
Yeah, has anybody played? You mentioned the space track going on. There was a board game that.
Advertising?
No, it's not advertising, and I bet none of us have played it.
Monopoly Shrek Jr.
No, but if you're listening
I
to
have
this,
played that.
if you're
so.
listening to this podcast and you know what the game is I'm talking about, I just tried Googling it and I cannot find it. Let us know. It's kind of like a Space Invaders type board game.
I feel like you've talked about
where
this before.
you're flying like the ship and you're shooting stuff, and then you get to a boss at the end, and like you're rotating through those same kind of like planks.
Oh yeah, I remember seeing that
to
one.
simulate. It's Kimball's Cascade. Okay, now I think I remember Kimball's Cascade or something like that. I'm gonna look it up.
Anyway,
Come back to me.
That's important because was there a point you were gonna build
because
off
it's
there?
like a similar mechanic or mechanism.
Okay.
I never played that game, and I always thought that was like a really cool gimmick for like a board game. Like that's how they simulated like
The board moving.
the board moving,
Yeah, I thought
flying
that
through
was
space.
awesome. Campbell, what about you, my man?
Number one pro is like all of my favorite games. There's definitely like 100% nowhere near enough time to do all the things you want to do ever. And I love being frustrated like that. Having played this game 3 times and not more than 3 times, I'm pretty certain that this game doesn't fall into the trap of there's a lot of ways to make points, but clearly one of them is better than the other. From what I can see, the amount of points you can get from creating mission cards, from putting resources into scoring mission cards, to getting endgame points, to making little other combos that get points for you. I think that pretty much any path you take and do better than the other players is going to score buku points for you. I think you can be diverse and get a lot of points. I think you can like laser in on something and get a lot of points. So that's cool that you can play the game a different way kind of every time. There's no matter what you do in this game, you start out like it's kind of a good idea. I think that really is a benefit to new players because it can be kind of like hard to immediately think of how you can get points.
Yeah, or even have like a perspective of where to start. I definitely dealt with that.
But the cool thing is pretty much no matter what you do, you're gonna have enough of whatever resource you can get in the game to like turn it into points in the back half of the game, whether that's through end game tiles or like the point engine missions. So this isn't like a super nasty one to teach for people who like heavier weight games, because if you can learn a game halfway through and then you know how to like play games other than this, I think you can put the pieces together halfway through and still end up with a really respectable score. The 3 modules are really fun. The technology board the kind of ship defense, and then like the mission flying all work together in a really nice ebb and flow, I think was what Rob said. There's kind of that same thing we talked about with Trois, of where you can't really anticipate what other people are going to do, and it might be really frustrating, but there's kind of always another option for you to take, and you can always kind of go do the thing you wanted to do later, because the stuff you're trying to do is always going to show back up on the board. There's not a set schedule for when dice get re-rolled, so you can always kind of wait for the tide to come back in if there's something that you absolutely have to do. I mean, you can get stuck with bum luck, but
yeah, I would say that one part, I mean, not to jump into the cons immediately, but that part was a little frustrating for me. So one of the really cool things in this game is when you reset, you roll all of your die, and then you can spend one resource to keep one of those die back, which prevents any other players from purchasing or like taking your die, which is really clever. But there were a couple times where like I really wanted to grab technology, but by the time that I reset, there were either people took all of my die that allowed me to go down that track, and or I would pull one back, and then by the time that it would come back around to me, all of the technology would be gone. And so I've only played it once, so the jury's still out, but I think my initial reaction is I actually do prefer the Trois system, where you get more money, so that way you can afford to just go out and buy like whatever you need, versus this one where it's just like you get one resource, and then that like you can only ever buy one die. Like in Trois, there's an opportunity, not to compare the two directly, but there's an opportunity to go and buy multiple dice to still be able to try and do something big and something cool. And with this one, it's just you get to pick one die and hope that there's something that you can use to like put it towards, which, as Campbell said, at times can be a little frustrating.
Yeah, I'm actually on the complete other side of that one, because I found Trois so frustrating at 4 players.
That's true. You also said that there was no utility in the lower value dice.
I wanted
to just throw that in there real quick.
I didn't say there was no utility in the lower value dice. I said there was less utility in them, and when you go last in Trois and all the stuff gets bought out at the beginning of the round, there's no resetting the way you can do in this one. So like if all your cool stuff gets bought, you can reset, and you can do it whenever you want.
But then if you reset before it comes back around to you, there is a likelihood that, I mean, you can pull one dice back, which is great, but all of your dice can get bought up right.
Yeah, but the good news is there's a 1-to-1 ratio on dice purchasing. So if you get all your dice bought up, then you have the resources to buy the dice you need.
But because you're also only taking one die and you can't flip it, similar to Trois, if you can't get if like the value that you need isn't there, then even though you have the ability to take a die, doesn't mean that it's going to be a great play for you. Whereas in Trois, you can spend more money in order to be able to buy like multiple of a dice to get a higher value to be able to do a thing.
Yeah, I don't know if we're ever going to agree on this one, because I think there's just way more outs in Trois. Or in Black Angel than there are on Trois, because like if all the dice get taken early in a round,
disagree.
I think we're just gonna have to, because there's no reason to talk about this for like 10 minutes. But
I want to, guys.
Yeah, I agree.
We can, but
it's probably just a personal preference thing.
100%
and I think that I fall on the side of Campbell. I enjoy just having to use one dice on something and not worry about like getting a 2 or 3 dice type action.
Yeah, you and I have different gamer brains, and we have different things that we like, Josh. And I think what I like about the Trois aspect of things is you can do a lot more things to kind of plan ahead for like the ifs and the ands in this game, because you can make sure not to spend your last resource. You can make so that you can lock a dice. You can make sure not to spend your last debris cube so that you can flip a dice. You will never get your robots kicked out of the room where you can collect more dice if you want. So you could go set it up so you could collect 6 dice when you reset. So if you reset and people buy 3 of your dice, you still have 3 more. So I think you have a lot more outs. But in Trois, I understand kind of where you're coming from, that like if all you have to look at is your money in Trois, and if you have a ton of money, you can like pull a bunch of dice together and still get a big old banger move. So and I think that is more in line with kind of the way you like to do things in games.
Rob, what about you?
Doctor?
So I think I'm going to jump on that a little bit for a pro for me. I liked being able, like I slowly worked my way up to getting 6 dice, and I liked not having to worry about people kicking me out of not being able to get my dice.
Yeah.
And I think I was rolling the most dice for the whole game pretty much.
And honestly,
I did the most with that. And I think that that helped me a lot. It gave me a lot of choices. Also, people started throwing a
Yeah.
lot of resources my way.
Big time.
Which I still think it's funny that the things are called resources, because that's just like
Yeah.
a generic term for everything in my brain.
I actually want to backpedal on something I said. Like, I think I made kind of a snarky comment about how, like, I passed the ball over to you for the win tonight, but, like, having all those dice was a brilliant move because you went into the back, like, half of the game with, like, no resource tokens, but people bought your dice over and over again near the end, and that turned into tons of points for you and tons of different ways you could go with those actions, whereas I had to, like, reset with one of my last 2 turns. So, it was a super good thing on your part to do that.
Yeah, I think the other part of that was I was wondering, because you can reset at any time, and if you reset and the dice are not available at the particular time to get them, I was kind of worried about the fact that, if when I reset, for every worker I have in the specific colored area, I get a dice for that maybe because everyone will have lots of dice, I won't be able to get all my dice, and you kind of got to plan for when you're going to do the reset. But since you're being able to buy dice from other people so often, and if people are buying your dice, you can buy them back, I think that's something less to worry about.
In practice, the tide of the game, I think, makes it so that you pretty much always have the dice you want to pull when you want to pull them. I have never seen anybody take less dice than they were supposed to. And like I said, I've only played the game 3 times, but that's a pretty good sample for never having seen somebody miss a die when they go to do a pickup.
I will say my number one pro for the game is probably I like the interconnectedness of it all. I mean, you use the green dice to take out Ravagers, which you can use to throw at mission cards for points, or you can use it to put down near your board to activate Rose wildly. Or you go and do the gray action where you are cleaning up cubes, which then you can use to flip your dice over.
Thematically, you're repairing the ship.
Yeah.
So the Ravagers attack.
Yep.
You can repair the ship, and then you can also go and get technology.
Yep. And then the yellow,
research technology.
and I like because the 3 races, they kind of give you a story about all of them. Like the yellow people, I wish I could remember their names, but the yellow aliens, they're all about technology. So when you do that, you grab the technology, and then you play a whole kind of little game with your 3x3 grid there, pushing your tech around on the board. And you need to put the mission cards down to do the mission cards. And it's just like doing one thing leads to another thing to another thing, and it's just figuring out what lever to pull at the right time to get your reward.
Yeah.
I feel like a rat in the maze.
There is like a real discernible flow to this game where not only can you kind of see the steps go by where, like, kill the Reavers, pick up the cubes, get more tech, lay the mission cards, create more Reavers, create more damage. You can sort of, like, time things out in this game where it, like, really is beneficial to sort of look at what other players are doing, which sort of, between that and the dice taking, kind of takes away the feeling of, like, multiplayer solitaire that a lot of Euros have. Because you can kind of, like, count on the player sitting across from you to put a mission down to create more Reaver cards if it seems about that time. So you can sort of, like, again, watch the tide of this game and try to use it in your favor.
Well, yeah, and that's just the other thing. My other pro is exactly that, where you have to work together. Like, if everyone is just plowing through mission cards on the board and using one of the 3 mission spaces, one for each color, instead of doing the other 3 things where you're getting technologies and killing Reavers and fixing the ship, then, like, everyone's actions are just going to get cruddier. Everyone's got to pay penalties to do stuff. So everyone's going to suffer because of that. And trying to figure out who's going to do what when and trying to capitalize on that too is kind of a cool thing. It's almost like a semi-co-op in that way.
It's nice that the game rewards you enough for those nice things you do for the team, though, where, like, you have people being, like, upset that they weren't the ones who got to do it too. Because a lot of times when you do something kind of nice to set up the economy in a competitive game, you're, like, sort of wasting a turn so that other people can capitalize on it. Like when you take the craftsman in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, I don't think you have a wasted turn in this game at all. Unless you're using a 3-pip action to, like, kill one Ravager or clean up one cube.
Yeah. Well, let's keep this moving, and let's switch to the other side of the coin with some cons.
We didn't even get pros from you.
We already said everything, and we're at almost an hour, so let's just keep it going. Cons, I'll start. just because I didn't have a ton to add to the pros discussion. My immediate reaction is, I mean, the first play, unless you're Rob Pearson and you're Rain Man, you're gonna struggle to figure some stuff out, which isn't a bad thing. I think the biggest thing that I'm learning as we have been doing the podcast for 2 years is having a bad first play isn't necessarily a direct impact on whether or not you'll like the game. It's just a matter of if there's enough there to make you want to play it again. And some games that we've played, I play them and I say one is enough for me. No, thank you. But this game, I would definitely like to play again. Some of the things that were frustrating for a new player, the board that you're moving for space, like for traveling through space, each piece is shaped like a V, and if you're not paying attention, in my case, there were a couple where I was like, oh, I'm gonna have a chance to be able to do this thing, but then when I looked, it was actually on the piece that was going to be getting removed because it was further back on the board. It had this optics of being of me thinking that it was going to be coming up on like a later turn. So there was a couple of frustration things there. Again, I go back to the dice thing. I think this one's a little bit more punishing than in Trois personally. I know we just talked about that, so I don't need to get into it. But there were a couple moments where everything that I wanted to do in a turn just kind of fell apart because people were grabbing my dice and then they weren't resetting. And I think even Ben had a couple turns where he was just like, I can't do anything. Yep. I mean, sure, there's something that I can do, but I can't do the thing that I want to do because players aren't forced to reset. It can come around to you and there's literally like one dice on the board. And it's like, okay, I'm going to waste my turn now to reset so that I have something. But then people can just buy all of those dice
because they don't have
dice because they don't have dice, so they can use the resource to grab my dice. So then it'll come around to me, and I'll have a couple mediocre turns, just like waiting for them to try. Like, I really don't like that about this game. As I'm like talking more about it,
I have two things for that.
Go ahead.
Two questions for you.
Yeah,
I'm going to start with the one about what you just said. I never felt that way at all, and I don't know if that's because I bought more dice.
Probably.
And I don't know if buying more dice, like owning more dice, is like would make you feel better about that in the game.
I mean, I probably would. I think for the most part, I was always rolling 4 die, and I think you had 4 for a part of it, but then you went up to 5, and then I think by the end of the game, you were the only player that had 6.
I rolled 6 twice. I reset with 6 dice twice.
Yeah. So I mean, that could definitely be part of it. Is just trying to get some additional dudes in order, but I don't know. It's just
because I mean that just means you have more options.
It totally does, and I'm not arguing that, but I do think that the ability to take other players' dice in this game is a little bit more punishing than what people might initially think. And again, I was on the receiving end of it. Ben was on the receiving end of it. You and Campbell weren't necessarily on the receiving end of it because
I don't know if Campbell was or not, but
Campbell had so many gems that he could just like, oh, I'm gonna buy that die now. Oh, I'm gonna buy that die now.
Yeah,
oh, I'm gonna do this thing and I'm gonna flip it around, right? And so it's like when you're on the receiving end of it, you can it just kind of stares you in the face.
Oh, 100%.
You know? But again, that's not enough for me not to want to play this game.
Okay, that's my second question.
Yeah, no, I'll still play.
No, well, this is more of a
right now.
A generalization is. Do you think you're more willing to play this game again because you have owner's bias?
No.
And you know what I mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, I like the theme. I will say thematically, I wish that the races meant a little more, not just like the yellow like technology, the green like when you kill the Reavers, the blue guys.
I mean, what else could they mean, I guess?
I don't know. But I look at like a 3, like Horizons, which we just played, which is another space game. And in like the artwork that's on the cards, like every faction has like a story that you can kind of figure out and like who they are as like a race or like a species. And I know that the artwork for this game is entirely different.
Yeah.
But I was just kind of looking for that.
I mean, if you read the rule book, you get their stories.
Sure. But it doesn't come to life. But it doesn't come to life in the pictures. Game. Which to me...
It does a little bit with the actions, though, because... Like I mentioned at the beginning, the yellow ones, the yellow cards have mostly certain symbols on them.
Yeah.
The green ones mostly have symbols. So if you put it together, I mean, maybe not as deep as you're looking for, but I think it's there.
Well, Rob, you asked specifically about owner bias, and I guess as the only non-owner of this game here,
Sure.
I would say that I would play it again, like Josh is talking about, it is definitely one of those games that I think, I mean, it's a 3.7 something on the weight. So,
I feel like that's high, but
partially because of the complexity, but I think largely because of the iconography, your first playthrough is going to be rough. And I spent most of the game just kind of staring blankly at the board. It's one of those games that there's a lot of options, and if you can't kind of start to put that together in your head, or until you can put that together in your head, you're gonna be a little bit lost. And I found some, like I said earlier, I found a couple of things to do that were good, but I kind of was leaning too heavily towards getting missions on the board, and you guys were accruing wealth in other ways. So then I had a lot of yellow cards, but really nothing to do with them. So I guess cons for me would be the iconography is a little overwhelming.
Yeah, the board's beautiful, but it's definitely too complicated.
There's
for
some
what you're doing.
pieces of the board that I think they have a lot going on.
The Black Angel board, I think, is way too busy.
Yeah. The artwork is beautiful, but there's a lot of iconography smashed on there. So there's that. And I think the other piece, and maybe this was just due to my misunderstanding of it, but I really didn't understand the, we'll call it the robot economy until the middle of the game, when I didn't have any good ways to get robots, but I needed robots to do all the things I wanted to do. So it's just one of those things. There's a lot of way to score points, but that means also that there's a lot of moving parts that you got to keep track of to make any of that stuff happen.
Robert Kimball, what about you guys? Cons?
Sure. I got two. The first is a short one and really subjective. This game can be like a total AP nightmare. I've played it 3 times, and there's been that pitfall every time. Especially if you're learning the game, there can be a lot to soak in with each turn. But that's not a huge deal. For most people, especially if you play with a group you like, and this game's probably just going to take a pretty long time your first time playing it. Not a huge con in my book. There is one though that I could see being really frustrating for people, and I saw it happen to players playing the same game next to me when we were at Gen Con. There's a real trap you can spring if you play a heavy technology game, and that is you can kick your good starting technologies off the board. They are the best one, basically the most utility techs you can have in the game. They're basically the way you have an out to get more resources, more debris, more robots, more ships. We saw a dude sitting next to us who pushed all of those off of his board early and had no way to recover because he couldn't get resources, he couldn't get debris, he couldn't get robots, he couldn't get ships. And so he had to basically just reset 3 or 4 turns in a row and lose points. And what he did, the way he'd done it, he'd rushed ahead 30 points in the first 2 rounds of the game, but then he was just losing 5 or 6 points. If you kick the good technologies that help you do stuff off of your board early and don't find the replacements that do kind of the same thing, you can be in a really bad situation if you run out of any one of the 4 of those.
Is that a con though, or just poor a player error?
Well, it's a player error if you know how to play the game and it happens. It's a con if you're playing for the first time and nobody warns you about that.
Sure.
And, yeah.
So that'd be
the game allows you to do that.
That'd be like a tip trick. Yeah, tip trick.
Yeah.
Keep your starting technologies
it's a
for a
con
while.
for sure.
I mean, I guess it's not as a con as much as a major
watch out.
Yeah, watch out. But also, I think that the technology that I've seen it be the least utilized dice in the 3 times I've played this game. That was for sure the first time I filled out my technology board like that. One player did in the last game we played, and then before that, basically nobody did. So I think people tend to gravitate more towards fixing the ship and killing the Ravagers because it's more fun anyway. But if you push technology quick and you push the yellow or the green ones out, you could find yourself in a really tough situation.
Rob, what about you?
There's a couple things. I guess first of all, definitely the Black Angel board, which is the main place where all the dice are, is pretty busy. Telling what dice is where and remembering like after you use the dice to put it back in the supply, and the supply is really close to where your dice that you can use are, and that is really close to the place where you can lock your dice up, and just like lots of little icons. Now, once you know the game, like when I first looked at it, I was like, good Lord, what does all this mean? And after I read the rule book, I'm like, and then after I played half a game, I started looking, I'm like, oh yeah, okay. This all makes sense. And now it's fine. It's still busy, but now that I know what to look for, it's helpful.
Well, and I'll say to build off of that, there were a couple turns. Like I will say that, like when you're traveling through space and you're like setting up your missions, there's a lot of steps there that are sometimes easy to overlook if people either aren't paying attention or if you don't have like, because every time that you're doing a mission, you bring out new technology, you have to damage the ship. There are like all of these steps.
Yeah, especially the mission. There's a lot of steps you got to make sure you do there. Even like when you do the Ravager, you got to remember you can do something with your red cubes that you can do something with the red cubes when you clean up the ship and fix it. I will say though, overall, and before I read the rule book, I kind of looked at the like appendix extra guide that had like all the icons of all the tiles and cards, and I looked at that and I'm like, good Lord, there's a lot of stuff here. But now that I've played the game once, like I think the iconography on the cards and the tiles is fantastic.
Yeah, it's the stuff on the board that's really
the
gross.
cards and tiles are very easy to figure out by looking at it what's going on.
And the player board's really, like the player aid's really good.
I don't know how much of a con this is, but they throw in like a couple of advanced rules that I think are necessary for the game.
Yeah.
That like I don't think they should really be optional. They're not that big of a deal, but I guess it's nice that if people don't want to play it, then they don't have to do that. The rule book is not fantastic, I will say. I think there's a lot of and a lot of people are complaining about this on the BGG forum. There's a lot of translation type things that are not clear, and like they kind of gloss over the whole fact of how you actually take an action for like the mission cards. They kind of just assume people know how to do certain things, which could be tough for some people.
Or like what was the question I had like 3/4 of the way through? It's like it told you in the rule book to take something from the supply, but there was nothing that was like ever referenced as the supply.
Right, where they meant to take it from the break room.
Yeah, so there was just some weird vernacular inconsistencies that led to a bunch of questions.
Today's show brought to you by the word vernacular.
It's a good one.
I mean, overall, I mean, I don't think I've got, besides the fact that I can't decide if I think this game, how complex this game is. It is a complex game. I think it's a complex game to teach. I don't think it's a complex game to play once you've got it. Like as far as like if we were to come back and play this game tomorrow or in a week, I don't think I'd even have to crack the rule book. I think I would just look at the little card and go. But getting into it for the first time, I think can be tough, and I think teaching a new player for the first time could also be difficult. But I think on subsequent plays, it should be pretty intuitive overall, especially with the reference cards.
Yeah.
There's just a couple different engines you can build.
Yeah, and my biggest con, which I think isn't really, I keep saying this, it's not really a con, but for Trois, my con was the first 3 times I played, I'm like, I don't know how to score points in this game. And that was the truth because I scored like almost no points. The same thing can happen here. I mean, you could just not score points if you don't. Maybe, I can't remember. I feel like it's easier to score points in this game than Trois, because I think almost everything you do in this game is good and gets you stuff. And then
Would you say this is a point salad, Rob? Because everything you do gets you a point or two?
No.
Or
it's more like
contributes
everything.
to getting a point?
Yeah, I mean,
Point salads is the end.
No point. I mean,
No,
point salad
right?
is generally a game that just gets you points like for anything that you
time.
do.
This is less of a point salad than like Burgundy, where everything you do directly gets you points. This one, everything you do gets you resources that then you can figure out how to tool into points.
But
Yeah.
every 2 resources is also a point.
I had a lot of
If
stuff that
so
was just
fact,
giving
though-
me a point, like
If by the fact that every
Consistently.
mission card can score you points, and there's lots of different combinations of things you can throw at mission cards.
yeah.
I mean, the only other way you really score points in this game besides the mission cards are, so you can score points by mission cards.
Resources.
You can score points at the end of the game for resources if you make it to the planet, or you can score points when you flip over the advanced technology tiles, or when you activate technology tiles that have points on them,
Yeah.
right? So there's like 3 ways to score points.
Yeah, and they all like the mission cards. There's like a few different ways to score mission cards on points too, because there's ones that give you points when they get kicked off the board. There's ones that you have to like pay stuff to do it, and then a lot of times the ones that when they get kicked off the board have to do with like how you set up other stuff that could maybe get you points. So it's cool. I think that I was doing stuff like near the end that I had never even thought would be like a viable point strategy, but then like I began to see how like if I'd set things up a different way, like you and Josh both cashed in hard on one that I would have never thought to do, where you just like kept doing the same kinds of missions, tucked them all under, and then both dropped off for like 12 points there. That was
9.
that
Yeah.
was big.
Yeah, I was wondering the whole game like how I was going to score those kinds of things, and then it kind of just came together when Josh put it on the
But
table
you
for me.
bashed a ton of points from that, and then there was one where you had to set a ton of ships, and a card just happened to come up for you that crushed it. And so like you can get a lot of points really quickly at the end of the game.
Yeah, I really like the fact that the advanced rules, which I think you need to play with, are draw 2 missions and keep 1.
Yeah, you at least need to do that.
That really lets you see more cards to focus in on some kind of strategy.
I wouldn't recommend playing without that rule, even in your first game. Like the advanced technology, I could give or take, but the drawing 2 cards was huge.
it just helps you see more cards too, which for someone who's getting into it, even for someone who understands this type of game, you really need to see as many cards as possible. And maybe that just means like what Rob said is sitting and maybe reading through the index or like browsing through the entire stack of cards first, so you have a better idea of like these are some of the combinations you might see. This is sort of like cards are worth between 2 and 3 points. So if you can do something that's worth 3 points, that's worth it.
100%.
What's the solo player's name that you play against in this game?
It's Hal.
That's a pro for sure.
Yeah.
Let's
Hal
move,
9000.
Let's move on to final thoughts. I'll kick us off.
And within final thoughts, can we say what ranking we think this game will kind of settle out in?
Yeah.
Within what, 6 months?
We'll say by the end of, I mean, Wingspan got up on the top 100 in what, like 2 months.
Yeah, but that's like a super mass
Yeah. So yeah,
market.
we'll say over the course of the night, we'll keep an eye on it.
Or
we'll do a Black Angel watch
at the end of 2019.
At the end of 2019, we'll come back and we'll tell you. I think it's going to be right around the 120 to 130, kind of right in there. I enjoy this game. Like I said, the first play was a little frustrating, but that's part of it with games like this. Just figuring out the kinks, figuring out the iconography, figuring out how all the different phases work together. I would definitely play again. I will say if you're the kind of gamer that in order to enjoy the game, you have to do well in the game, maybe try this one a couple times before you end up pulling the trigger on it. But the artwork's great. The theme's cool. The mechanisms are sound. And I am very glad that I picked this up at Gen Con. That's me. Ben, what about you?
Okay, here's my prediction. I think that they will come out with not necessarily an expansion, but maybe an updated rule book and maybe some slight tweaks to some rules. I think that'll do a lot for the accessibility of the game, and I think because of that, it'll crack the top 100 yet this year.
Okay.
Boom. Like you said, Josh, there was a point where I was pretty frustrated, and this is probably the most completely lost I've felt in a game. But that kind of passed, and it started to clear up towards the end of the game. So, fun game. At this point, would definitely play it again.
I mean, you were right in the lead there most of the game, right?
Yeah, man.
Right, but off
Somehow.
of one thing, and then just a game like this for me, like I have to find a couple things that I think are cool and just try to get those done. And if I can
Sure.
check those boxes, then the score at the end doesn't really bother me very much. So it's like I saw like that combination of cards fairly early on. I was like, well, if I can do this, that'd be cool. But I did that and almost didn't even understand the way to get that done, I guess. So, but here at the end, I'm saying that I would play it again. So there you go. Boom, Cam.
Cool.
Bam, bam.
Well, if we're talking predictions, I think that within the next 2 years, this game will crack the top 50 and spend at least 6 months there. I just think it's too tight to not. Like, it looks great. It's got a lot of buzz behind it. I don't think there's a lot of holes in the game. So I don't know. I could be super wrong. I love it. I want to play it again. I've played it 3 times in the last 7 days. I want to get it back to the table ASAP. It's super, super great. And every game we've played, I don't remember the exact range between scores in this one, but they've ended pretty close start to finish. There's not a huge scoreboard on this one, so the points count a little more than in a game where you can score like 250 points, like Castles of Burgundy. So I don't know what a real clock cleaner score is once somebody gets really good at it, but I don't know. I like that about it, and I want to play it a bunch.
Rob.
I can't decide if I think this game is going to make it to the top 100 or not. I could 100% say it's going to be in the top 200. But I think if Twa has a spot in the top 100, that this will probably get up in there too. Just through buzz and looks alone. I mean, the gameplay is right there with it. It might be a little too heavy for some. It looks great. I want to play it some more. I've really just kind of gushed about it so far. So I don't have a lot of bad things to say about it. I'm glad. I was the third one of us to pick it up. I was like, nope, not going to do it. Nope, you guys both got it. I don't need it. And then it was still there on Saturday, and there was like 6 of them left. And I was like...
You got that FOMO.
I was like, man, worst case scenario, I can sell it. But it's going to stay on the shelf for sure.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I tell you what, this episode's running a little long, so we're going to probably bypass Cool Game Corner unless there's any games that people want to give a shout out to quickly. Because I would like to talk about the new contest.
Do we just want to say a name of a game we want to have people go look at real quick?
Sure. Rob, you start.
Hey, little thing, come to Cool Game Corner now. You handle now.
Well, after I'm done reawakening humanity from being the winner of Black Angel, I think I would go play
White Devil.
Advertising.
You know what? I don't even know. I'm just gonna go with Abomination Air Frankenstein that I've already talked about because that's the number one game I wanted at Gen Con, and I played it twice now and I still love it. So
That's good. Camel,
give it a shot.
Camel, what about you?
I'm just going to take this opportunity to talk real quick about Underwater Cities one more time. We didn't really talk about it earlier. You go check it out. A lot of people have likened it to Terraforming Mars, but it's super, super good. It's by Suchi, who is the dude who did Pulsar and Last Will and Prodigals Club. And it's the bomb. Go get it.
Ben?
It should be in the top 100.
Disagree. Ben, what about you?
I was super happy to stumble upon Azul at Target. So for someone looking for a game that's a little more casual and easy to teach people who are not into heavy games.
What, Rob?
Nothing. The Target angle's great.
It's at Target.
And
Rob doesn't like how mainstream it is.
No,
You're wrong.
I want to plug every Prospero Hall game ever because they make the kind of games that belong in Target, and they're generally Target exclusive to start with.
Yeah, you didn't talk about Jaws?
Jaws and Horrified are both amazing games that are out right now. And I haven't played Villainous, but everybody seems to be digging Villainous
is cool.
too.
Yeah.
So those are the kind of games that should be out there for the mass market average Joe to go up there and be like, oh, cool, they made a Jaws game, and then it's actually good. And then maybe they say, oh, Maybe board games can be
Wait,
more than Monopoly.
What's this
Yeah.
Twilight Imperium 4th edition I see now?
Yeah, they can go straight. That's like a
This
straight
should be
jump.
an easy
That's the
jump.
transition.
Jaws
Yeah.
straight into TI4.
Any game straight
Right?
to
I mean, like if you
TI4.
look at like the,
TI4 is just so short.
a lot of really cool games came out in the 70s and 80s, and they were like Milton Bradley games, you know.
Well, and that's why I love restoration games
Yeah.
too, because that's what they're doing is they're bringing back those old ones.
Yeah, I never
And-
played the Dark Tower, but the concept artwork that they released for it looks awesome.
Did you hear about the tower? It's gonna have like actual rotating gears and stuff, and like magnets that like it's gonna hook up to your phone, and like magnets and doors will just fall off the tower and stuff falls out, and
That sounds awesome.
the
That's
tower
cool.
the tower's gonna be
Tornado
so
Rex comes
sweet.
bopping out of there, spinning around.
I'm not going to talk about a game. I'm going to talk about an event for my Cool Game Corner. Cardboard Caucus is, I think we've mentioned it a couple times on the show, but the local Des Moines board gaming group community is coming together to try. There's a really solid team that's trying to put together, or has successfully, I should say, put together a board game convention that we're going to be having in Des Moines, October. It's the same week as Essen, so it's like October 25th through the 28th or something like
It
that.
is. It's right after I get back from a business
Yep.
trip.
Check it out. You can just check. You can search on Facebook for Cardboard Caucus, or you can hop onto the tabletop events page for it. I'm going to be running 2 games of Twilight Imperium 4th edition over the course of that Saturday. I know there's a ton of other games that are going to be happening. There's a bunch of game tournaments. They have coordinated with like a traveling games library that's got like over 1,500 titles, so there'll be a great games library to choose from. But I'm really excited to kind of see it grow. I'm sure Rob's going to put together a math trade, and we may or may not do something for the podcast. Maybe not a recording, but maybe just like a meetup with some casual party games and that kind of stuff, just to hang out with anybody that wants to come and chill. But yeah, check that out. Cardboard Caucus again, and that should be a really great time.
I think I'm gonna run Game of Thrones 2nd edition board game.
You'll
event.
finally get your playmat, and then you can do
The mat is out. Matt Watch 2019. It only took a year.
finally happened.
I just have to get it.
So I want to kick off a new contest that we're going to be doing here on the podcast. As you know, assuming you've listened to previous episodes, I was working the Floodgate Games booth at Gen Con this year, and Ben Harkins, who is a wonderful person and one of my favorite people I've ever met in the hobby / industry. He's the owner of Floodgate Games. He was gracious enough to provide us with the entire suite of Sagrada products. So in addition to the base game of Sagrada, we also have the 5 and 6 player expansion, and then we're also including a new copy of Sagrada The Passion, which is the brand new expansion that that Floodgate just released at Gen Con. So ton of variety with the new modular expansion. The 5 and 6 player obviously increases the player count, but also adds in a couple other cool mechanisms and different way to score some points with your dice. And then the base game of Sagrada as well. A lot of people were hyped on it at the con just years later, which was awesome to see. And big shout out to Ben and Floodgate Games for hooking us up and doing a giveaway.
Oh man, I can't enter that, can I?
No,
I don't
you're
own
disqualified.
I don't own any of those.
Yeah, you are 100% disqualified.
but you
from
don't
winning.
know all of my pseudonyms.
Hold on. If I quit right now, am I disqualified still?
Yes,
Why?
because there's like a as long as you've been a board boy within the last 60 days, you're
Yeah, I think
ineligible for participating.
What if you're a board game boy?
Yeah.
Yes, I'll allow it. So, we'll go ahead and we'll get that up and running here. If it's not up by the time that this episode drops, it'll be up shortly thereafter, and we'll let it run for, we'll say, a month. We'll do it for a month. The secret word, we'll just go ahead and start that from the get-go. We're going to keep it real simple. Sagrada is a game about building beautiful stained glass windows. So the secret word is
pumpkins.
Stained, like the band. Stained. It's stained.
It's Windows.
It's stained.
No, it's
no,
Tool.
It's stained.
Windows.
It's Tool.
It's stained.
The
Nope, it's
band is Tool.
Windows. The word is Windows with an S on the end.
Windows XP.
Windows 97. No,
No,
just
it's
Windows.
STAIND.
Straight up Windows.
Okay.
Put that in, you'll get yourself 5 extra entries. But let's go ahead and let's wrap this up. Rob, where can folks check us out?
You can check us out on Facebook, Instagram. I'm trying to think all the things we're at the Board Boys Podcast.
Gmail, Facebook, and Instagram. Board Boys Podcast.
Yeah, the Board Boys Pod on Twitter, Guild 3455.
72 members.
Go check out our
72
micro badge.
Yeah, come hit me up. I'll give you some geek gold to get our micro badge. Just send me a geek mail or post in the thread that I put on there, and I'll hook
Rob
you
is
up.
a board game geek millionaire.
We have like, yeah, I'm 1,000 there.
I have 2,800 geek gold, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
Man, why did I send you geek gold then?
I don't know. I still don't know. You
Rich
like
Boys
randomly
Club
sent me
over
geek gold,
here.
and I was like, oh, cool. I guess he thinks I'm poor, but I'm Scrooge McDuck. So anyway.
So, yeah, come get the micro badge. Come check us out. You can hit us up on theboardboys.com. That's where the contest will be, and it'll be on social media there. You'll have to just jump through some hoops, enter some stuff there.
Yeah.
Our last winner was cool. He actually won by the secret word, so we know that he likes to listen to the podcast. That was Lance Coffee.
Yeah, Lance.
Congratulations, Lance.
Other than that, folks can check us out on the Apple Podcast app. Stitcher, Spotify, SoundCloud, Google Play Music, really your favorite podcast platform.
Stitcher's been
We're likely
really
there.
pushing their app lately too, haven't they?
Yep. And then, as Rob said, you can check us out at theboardboys.com or theboardboyspodcast.com, whichever you prefer. We own them both. They both go to the same place. But until next time.
Oh, also, I've got shirts.
Oh, yeah.
If you want to buy a shirt, let me know.
We have shirts, we have stickers, we got coasters, we got really, really tiny stickers, like hilariously small
you don't have to
stickers.
tell them how small they are.
They're
like
tiny.
normal size if you
They
don't
won't.
think they're
They
small.
won't even notice.
Yeah, totally.
But mainly the shirts. We kind of did a trial run on some shirts. They're $20 a piece.
They look great.
We've got a few larges left.
Couple XLs. Yeah. We'll post them on Instagram. We'll get them up. We have a store, I think, on our website that we could turn on at some point.
Yes, we can do that when we want to.
Yeah, so we'll get that going. But until next time, this is Josh Ladd boning
Out of space.
out into space.
Hope you like board games.
Boning out where no bone has ever boned.
Before. Why else is that?
You can't handle the question.
So we made it to the middle of season 4 and we're calling it quits.
Dude, we're like 2 minutes into this thing without introducing ourselves.
We're not even there yet.
I don't even know who I am.
This is all getting cut.
No,
Oh,
it's
okay.
not.
Calm yourself.
No, it's not.
Yeah, like if
You
you
post
can.
this. You post this.